You are looking at a kitchen that is smaller than most walk-in closets. No island, no pantry, barely enough room to open the oven door without hitting the fridge. And yet, by the end of this video, you're gonna watch this exact kitchen cook a full Thanksgiving dinner for 6 people. I am not exaggerating. Stick around, because the trick that makes this possible is hiding in plain sight. And once you see it, you will never look at your own kitchen the same way again. Before we get into it, if you have ever stood in a cramped kitchen wondering how anyone could possibly cook in there, hit that subscribe button right now, because this channel is all about proving that small spaces can outperform big ones when the design is done right. And seriously, do not skip to the end this time. The final reveal in this video is the one detail almost every tiny kitchen tutorial forgets to mention. And it is the reason some 48 square foot kitchens function better than apartments 3 times their size. Okay, let's get into it. Here's the thing nobody tells you about small kitchens. The problem was never the square footage. It was always the layout. Give a bad designer 300 square feet, and they will still manage to make it feel like a hallway. Give a good designer 48 square feet, and they will make it feel like a hotel suite. That is not a metaphor. In 2026, designers have actually been doing this in real Manhattan apartments, taking kitchens smaller than a parking space and turning them into fully functional cooking stations that feel almost spacious, using nothing but smart planning and a few design tricks most homeowners have never even heard of. So what changed? Why is 2026 suddenly the year tiny kitchens stopped looking like a compromise and started looking like a flex? 3 things. Storage got smarter, materials got more forgiving, and designers stopped trying to fight the size of the room and started working with it instead. Let's break down exactly where everything goes, one piece at a time, because by the time we're done, you're gonna look at your own kitchen and see at least 3 places you've been wasting this entire time. The first rule of a tiny kitchen is this. If you're only using the bottom 2/3 of your walls, you are leaving free storage on the table. Literally. Most kitchens stop their cabinetry around eye level and leave a gap of dead space all the way to the ceiling. In a small kitchen, that gap is not a design choice. It is wasted square footage that you're already paying for. This is why vertical storage has become one of the defining moves in small kitchen design this year. We are talking full-height cabinets that run ceiling to floor, slim pull-out towers wedged into gaps as narrow as 6 inches, and stacked shelving that turns unused wall space into a second pantry. But here's the part that actually matters for how the kitchen looks, not just how much it holds. Designers are hiding almost all of it. Appliance garages that swallow the toaster and the coffee maker behind a matching panel. Pocket doors that slide sideways into the wall instead of swinging open into your elbow. Integrated refrigerators finished in the same material as the cabinets around them, so your eye slides right past them instead of stopping. Why does that matter so much? Because in a small space, visual clutter reads as physical clutter. Your brain cannot tell the difference between this room is small and this room is busy. Every visible gadget, every mismatched appliance, every open shelf stacked with mismatched dishware is quietly telling your brain the room is smaller than it actually is. Hide the noise, and the same square footage suddenly feels twice as big. That's not decoration. That's psychology, and it is doing more work in these kitchens than any renovation budget could. Now here's where it gets interesting, because this next idea sounds almost too simple to matter, and that is exactly why most people never bother doing it. It is called kitchen zoning, and it is quietly becoming one of the biggest organizational habits in small kitchens this year. The idea is this. Instead of organizing your kitchen by category, all the pots together, all the spices together, all the baking trays together, you organize it by task. Everything you need to make coffee lives in one small zone. The mug, the filters, the sugar, the spoon. Everything you need to bake lives in another zone. The flour, the trays, the measuring cups, the oven mitts, all within arm's reach of each other, not scattered across 3 different cabinets on opposite sides of the room. In a big kitchen, this barely matters because you have room to wander. In a small kitchen, this is the difference between cooking dinner in 15 minutes and cooking dinner in 40. Because you're not crossing the room 4 times to grab things that should have been standing next to each other the whole time. Zoning eliminates wasted travel distance. And in a kitchen where every step counts, that adds up fast. And this is where the hidden real estate trick comes in. the one most homeowners walk past every single day without noticing it. The inside of your cabinet doors. The side panels of your cabinets, right next to the fridge or wedged against a wall. These surfaces are doing absolutely nothing in most kitchens. And in a small kitchen, that is a crime. Slim pull-out racks mounted to the side of a cabinet can hold cutting boards, baking sheets, and trays vertically, using a sliver of space that would otherwise just be dead air. Door-mounted racks can hold spice jars, foil, and cling wrap. None of this touches your counter space or your floor space. It is storage that appears out of nowhere. And it might be the single most overlooked upgrade in small kitchen design because it costs almost nothing and nobody remembers to do it. Quick pause. If this is already changing how you're picturing your own kitchen, drop a comment with the square footage you're working with. I read these, and honestly some of the tightest kitchens people describe end up being the most fun to redesign. Now, stay with me, because the next part is where things get genuinely clever, and it involves furniture that is not what it looks like. If storage is the skeleton of a tiny kitchen, multifunctional furniture is the muscle. This is the category where designers get to have the most fun, because almost nothing in a well-designed small kitchen is doing just one job anymore. Fold-down countertops are a perfect example. Picture a slim panel mounted flush against the wall. 90% of the time, it is invisible, folded flat, taking up zero floor space. But when you need extra prep room, it unfolds into a full working counter, gives you space to roll dough or plate a meal, and then folds right back down when you're done. You get the benefit of a bigger kitchen exactly when you need it, without paying for that square footage every single day is not in use. Peninsulas are doing something similar for kitchens that cannot fit a full island. A peninsula gives you extra counter space and even a spot for a couple of stools, but because it is attached to a wall or a run of cabinets instead of floating in the middle of the room, it does not eat into your walking path the way an island would. It creates that visual. This is a bigger kitchen division between the cooking zone and the rest of the room, without demanding the floor space an island requires. And then there's the layout question underneath all of this, because furniture only works as well as the shape of the room lets it. The U-shaped layout has quietly become one of the most efficient configurations for small kitchens, because it lets you wash, prep, and cook without taking more than a step or two in any direction. Everything wraps around you. You are not walking a triangle across the room to grab a pan. You're pivoting in place. In a kitchen where every square foot is precious, a layout that reduces wasted motion is doing just as much work as any clever gadget. Now let's talk about the part of this that has nothing to do with storage and everything to do with how a room feels the second you walk into it. Because this is where 2020 SXS design trends get genuinely bold. For years, the advice for small kitchens was simple. Paint everything white, keep it plain, don't add anything that might close the room in. That advice is getting quietly retired. Designers this year are leaning into pattern and color specifically because they have realized something counterintuitive. A small kitchen with confident design choices reads as intentional, while a small kitchen that plays it safe reads as apologetic, like it is trying to hide the fact that it's small instead of owning it. Checkerboard flooring is one of the clearest examples. A patterned floor in a bold but balanced scale, paired with neutral cabinetry and natural textures, gives a tiny kitchen a sense of personality that a plain floor never could. And it does not make the room feel smaller, because your eye reads pattern as detail, not clutter, as long as the rest of the palette stays calm around it. Two-tone cabinetry is doing something similar higher up the wall, painting your lower cabinets in a deeper, richer color, and keeping your upper cabinets lighter creates a visual split that actually tricks your eye into perceiving more height in the room, making the ceiling feel taller than it is. It is a genuinely clever piece of visual engineering disguised as a paint choice. And then there's lighting, which might be the most underrated tool in this entire list. Intense, well-placed LED lighting under cabinets and inside open shelving does two things at once. It makes the kitchen more usable by actually illuminating your counter space properly instead of leaving you cooking in your own shadow. And it makes the room read as brighter and larger on camera and in person, because shadows are what make small rooms feel like small rooms. Light them properly, and half the smallness disappears before you've moved a single piece of furniture. Here's a trap a lot of people fall into with small kitchens. They assume smart and small don't mix, because smart usually means another gadget taking up counter space. But the smart technology actually gaining ground in tiny kitchens this year works precisely because it removes friction without adding clutter. Voice-activated faucets are a good example. In a kitchen where your hands are constantly full because there is no extra counter to set things down on, being able to turn the water on and off without touching the tap is not a gimmick. It is solving a real physical problem that only shows up when your workspace is this tight. The same logic applies to voice or app-controlled lighting. It is not about the novelty. It is about removing one more moment where you would otherwise need free hands or free space in a kitchen that has neither to spare. Integrated appliances tie back into that visual continuity idea from earlier. A dishwasher or a fridge finished to match the surrounding cabinetry does not just look nicer, it genuinely changes how large the room feels, because your eye stops registering it as a separate object interrupting the cabinet line. The room reads as one continuous surface instead of a patchwork of different materials. And that visual continuity is doing more heavy lifting for the feels bigger effect than most people realize. Okay, remember at the beginning I told you there was one detail almost every tiny kitchen video forgets to mention? Here it is, and it ties everything together. All of these tricks, the vertical storage, the zoning, the fold-down counters, the checkerboard floors, the hidden appliances, none of them work in isolation. The kitchens that actually feel bigger than their square footage are not the ones that used one clever idea. They are the ones where every single choice was made to support the others. The vertical storage only works because the zoning tells you what to put where. The visual tricks only read as intentional because the clutter was already hidden by the storage. The multifunctional furniture only earns its keep because the layout underneath, it was efficient to begin with. This is the actual secret behind that 48 square foot Manhattan kitchen that ended up feeling shockingly spacious. It was not one genius idea. It was a designer treating a tiny footprint as a puzzle where every single piece had to justify its existence, instead of treating it as a problem to apologize for. That is the mindset shift. Stop asking, how do I make this room feel bigger? Start asking, does every single thing in this room deserve to be here? And is it doing more than one job? Ask that question enough times, and you end up with a kitchen that cooks a full holiday dinner in a space smaller than most people's bathrooms. Before we get to the recap, I want to burn down a few pieces of advice that get repeated so often people assume they must be true. Because some of the worst-looking small kitchens I've seen were not built by people who ignore the rules. They were built by people who follow the wrong rules religiously. Myth number 1, everything has to be white. This has been repeated for so long it became gospel, and it simply is not accurate anymore. White can work, but it is not some magic ingredient that manufactures space out of nothing. A white kitchen with poor lighting and cluttered counters will still feel cramped, while a kitchen in a deep, saturated color with a smart layout and clean sight lines can feel enormous by comparison. The color was never the main variable. Layout and lighting were always doing the heavy lifting, and white just happened to be a safe way to avoid thinking about either one properly. Myth number 2, an island is always the goal. Islands look incredible in magazine spreads, and if you have the floor space for one, fantastic. But cramming an island into a kitchen that cannot comfortably fit one is one of the most common mistakes people make when they're chasing a dream kitchen look instead of designing for the room they actually have. An island that blocks your walking path or forces you to squeeze past it every time you open the fridge is not an upgrade. It is an obstacle you paid for. This is exactly why peninsulas have become the smarter substitute in so many small kitchens this year. You get the extra counter space and the seating without sacrificing the one thing a small kitchen cannot afford to lose, which is clear floor space to move through. Myth number 3, more open shelving automatically makes a room feel airier. Open shelving can look beautiful, but only when what's on it is curated and consistent. The moment it becomes a dumping ground for mismatched mugs and whatever pan didn't fit in the cabinet, it stops reading as airy and starts reading as visual noise, the exact thing that makes small rooms feel smaller. It is a design commitment, not a shortcut. If you're not willing to edit it down to a handful of intentional items, closed storage will serve you better. Myth number 4, bigger appliances mean a better kitchen. In a full-sized kitchen, sure, a larger range or a bigger fridge might genuinely add function. In a small kitchen, An oversized appliance can eat the one thing you cannot get back, which is clearance space around it. A slightly smaller, well-placed appliance that lets you actually open every door and drawer around it without a traffic jam will outperform a larger one that technically has more capacity but makes the whole room harder to move through. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This all sounds great, but a lot of it sounds expensive. Appliance garages, integrated fridges, custom pocket doors, that is not pocket change. So let's talk about the version of this that does not require a full renovation budget, because plenty of the effect can be recreated with far less money. Painted checkerboard flooring, for instance, does not require ripping out your existing floor and installing new tile. It can be done directly over many existing floor surfaces with the right prep and paint, and it is genuinely a weekend project that someone with zero flooring experience can pull off, which makes it one of the highest impact, lowest cost changes on this entire list. Door-mounted and side-mounted organizers are another low-cost win. These are inexpensive hardware additions, not renovations, and they instantly claim storage space that was previously doing nothing. If you take away only one idea from this entire video and go act on it today, make it this one, because it costs the least and delivers some of the most immediate, visible results. Two-tone cabinets do not require replacing your cabinetry either. In plenty of cases, a well-prepped paint job on your existing lower cabinets, paired with keeping the uppers their current lighter shade, can recreate a meaningful version of that height-boosting visual trick without buying a single new cabinet box. And lighting, arguably the highest impact category on this whole list, can be dramatically improved with a simple strip of LED lighting installed under your existing cabinets. This is a project that, for many kitchens, can be handled in an afternoon, and the difference it makes in how usable and how spacious the room feels is completely disproportionate to how little it costs. The pattern here is simple. You do not need to touch the bones of the kitchen to get most of this effect. You need to fix what's already wasted, hide what's already visible, and light what's already dark. That is a weekend of work and a modest budget, not a gutted kitchen and a 6-month renovation timeline. Let's run through it one more time fast. Go vertical and hide the visual noise behind appliance garages, pocket doors, and integrated panels. Zone your storage by task instead of category. And don't forget the dead space on the inside of your cabinet doors and along their side panels. Bring in multifunctional furniture, fold-down counters, peninsulas instead of islands, and a layout like a U shape that cuts down wasted movement. Don't be afraid of pattern and color, because bold, balanced choices read as confidence, not clutter. Light the room properly, because shadows are the real enemy of feeling spacious. And bring in smart tech only where it removes friction, not where it adds another thing to look at. None of this requires knocking down a wall. None of it requires a renovation budget most people don't have. It requires rethinking what every inch of the room is doing for you, and being honest about which of those inches have been wasted this whole time. If you made it this far, you now know more about small kitchen design than most people who have actually renovated one, and that is exactly why I wanted you to stick around to the end instead of clicking away at the 2-minute mark. If this changed how you're thinking about your own space, tap that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach more people who are staring at their own tiny kitchen wondering if it's a lost cause. Subscribe if you want more videos like this one, because we're going to keep tearing apart small spaces and showing you exactly where everything goes. And in the comments, tell me the one thing in your kitchen right now that you know, deep down, is not earning its space. I want to hear it. Thanks for watching Tiny Home World. See you in the next one.